The Founders, DNA and Genetics. By Sal Rachele. August 18, 2016. Website: salrachele.com. Produced by Higher Self.
An overview of the most common systems of thought on Earth and how the Earth changes relate to each discipline. Biology. Your biology changes continuously. It is the nature of bodies in the lower realms. About every 7 years, all of the cells in your physical form undergo death and rebirth, although the DNA patterning remains relatively constant. During the galactic shift, the DNA patterning will be mutated by the M-field fluctuations. This will cause your body to go through various ascension symptoms, as you call them. Some of you will experience extreme fluctuations in energy, ranging from manic to depressive, even if you have no psychological issues causing these feelings. Others will experience flu-like symptoms with no apparent evidence of any invading organisms, bacteria, or viruses. Most of you will experience tingling and rushes of energy from time to time. What you are feeling is not the actual increase in energy or frequency, but rather, the body's resistance to the increased energy or frequency. Higher frequency vibrations are not felt in the traditional sense by the body. The highest levels of energy are very pure, clear and clean. You will feel a sense of expansion and clarity, along with immense levels of love and compassion. Your physical form will eventually feel more energy more of the time. It will require less sleep. Sometimes you might experience periods where you seem to be tired a lot and wish to sleep long hours, but this is only a transition period. Your body may wish to be awake when your society says it should be sleeping, and vice versa. If you have regular work hours, this will create a bit of a difficulty. Ideally, your life needs to be structured in such a manner as to allow your body to go through erratic sleep patterns as it adjusts to the new frequencies of the galactic shift. Genetics. One aspect of human biology that is at the forefront of your research is the field of genetics. Your scientists pride themselves on having figured out a great deal of the genome matrix. However, they are really only scratching the surface of how the DNA works. Most of them have dismissed over half of the configurations as junk DNA, meaning that they think it has no use or value. What they need to admit to themselves is that they simply do not know what the vast majority of the DNA is for. They do not understand its function. If human beings were to observe closely how the natural world works, they would soon discover that nature does not make junk. Everything in the natural world has a purpose. It might be a rudimentary or very simple purpose, but it is a purpose nonetheless. We, your teachers who engineered the DNA over 100 million years ago, will assist in enlightening you about the purpose of the junk DNA. You have approximately 10 to the 108th power possible configurations of your DNA. This number is trillions of times larger than the number of atoms in your known universe. This number comprises the DNA in one human being, and even in one animal or plant for that matter. Why would the Creator make something with such a vast potential if it had no use? DNA codes and keys. When the Creator commissioned us to engineer the human form, we did not create the complexity and vast number of configurations. We only learned how to harness what the Creator had made and proceeded to catalyze the process of creation within the strands of DNA by firing the codes and keys that make up the strands. In some of our messages, we will go into a bit more detail on how this is done, but for now we will not go too far into the technical details. Suffice to say that life begins with the undifferentiated source energy of God and then gradually differentiates that energy into geometric patterns, called DNA codes and keys. The DNA codes and keys are arranged into molecules of organic elements, which are then chained together in such a way as to cause replication of the desired features, in this case bodily attributes. This, oversimplified, is the basis for the growing of organic tissue, including the human body. As the sperm activates the egg during conception, the DNA codes and keys trigger growth and replication of the pre-programmed patterns contained within the codes. As the process continues, the familiar-looking organs and tissues develop and you have an embryo. Locked within the tiny embryo are all of the codes and keys necessary to grow a full-sized, full-featured human being. Contained within a large portion of the DNA codes and keys are the etheric memories and ancestral patterns of the bloodline of the parents of the emerging child. This your scientists know fairly well. What they do not understand is that within the junk portion of the DNA codes and keys lies the memory of the soul's past lives, parallel lives, and lives on other worlds, in essence, the entire history of the soul since its emergence from the Godhead many millions of years ago. Also contained within the DNA codes and keys is the program that triggers ascension. Evolution does not stop with a fully formed human being, but continues up the ascension spiral until eventually you all become beings of pure light. All this is contained within the enormous number of configurations of the DNA. The codes and keys determine how and when the patterns will recombine and reform. Your free will affects the formation and growth of the DNA molecules, and you can mutate your own DNA by simply willing it to be so. If your will is trapped within ego desires, these mutations will tend to cause disharmony and disease. If, however, you have learned to move beyond the trappings of the ego and into a co-creative state with your higher selves, the mutations caused by the exercise of your free will can cause the DNA strands to accelerate not only your ascension, but your psychic and intuitive abilities, as well as numerous other abilities and creative urges of which you are currently unaware. DNA strands. In some of our earlier teachings, we described the various strands of DNA and what they are for. To briefly summarize, you have 24 strands of DNA, arranged in 12 pairs. There is one pair for each density level of experience. Your scientists are only able to detect the pair that corresponds to the third density level of vibration. As you go up the ascension spiral and begin vibrating at higher densities, you activate the dormant strands that correspond to those higher densities. In addition, you have 4 strands that correspond to first and second density. So a third density human has 6 strands activated, and a fourth density human has 8 strands activated, etc. You have predestined activation programs built into your DNA that automatically ignite the dormant strands once you reach a certain point in your evolution. The master template of ascension is one such program. The relationship between predestiny and free will is very complex, but we will sum it up as follows. There is a pre-programmed set of codes and keys within your DNA that tells you how and when your ascension will unfold, and you have the free will to alter the sequence and timing of events significantly. You can delay it or speed it up. You can allow it to unfold according to the highest and best learning opportunities for the soul, or you can choose a path that leaves the soul feeling unfulfilled. You can make it relatively simple and straightforward, or you can make it difficult and complex. Your soul essence has infinite patience and will wait while you experiment with different scenarios, but there is a limit as to how much you can delay the inevitable course of evolution. Within the current divine dispensation, those limits have been redefined. Earth herself is going through a shift in her planetary DNA and has already made the choice to ascend into a fourth density world. This means those minerals, plants, and animals that currently reside on her surface will also undergo a major shift, as will the humans that choose to remain with her. Contrary to the beliefs of some of you, a fourth density world is not devoid of first, second, and third density life. It simply has as its dominant life form, the fourth density expressions of self. Those organisms and life forms that do not match the higher frequencies of fourth density, whether they be minerals, plants, animals, or humans, will depart the earth plane. Actually, most of the minerals and some of the plants will remain, but their genetic structure will change. A smaller portion of the animals will remain, most likely about 1/4 of those originally patterned for a third-density Earth. As with many 3D humans, those animals that are not able to hold the vibration of fourth-density Earth will move into their spirit form and reincarnate on a planet that is more appropriate to their level of vibration. Not all planets that receive 3D humans will also receive animal forms. Some remedial 3D planets will have a great abundance of animal life, while others will be largely devoid of animal life. Animals can be great teachers of love and compassion and may volunteer to be of service to humans who need to acquire these qualities on another 3D planet. You can already see evidence of animals departing Earth as you look at the rapidly declining numbers of species on your world. Some appear to be dying from pollution or overpopulation of humans, while others seem to be disappearing due to climate change. However, the vast majority of the species that are disappearing are ones that cannot or will not adjust to the change in frequencies, and so they will take up residence on another third-density planet, or be recycled back into the Godhead and emerge in a new form. The evolution of plants and animals is not going to be explored in detail at this time. Instead, we will say a few words about the activating of your Ascension template. Again, some of this information has been given before, but we feel a need to refresh your memory. Triggering your Ascension template. The actual date of the activation of your master template was originally set by your soul, and in many cases, this predestined event was arranged before you came into embodiment. However, due to the complex interaction of free will and predestiny, the date can be altered somewhat. If, after having incarnated on Earth, you discover that the soul lessons and experiences are much harder than anticipated, or require more time than originally allotted, the date of activation can be postponed. On the other hand, if your progress as a soul is going much smoother than anticipated, a rarity in this turbulent world, the date can be moved up. There are a number of methods that can speed up the ascension process, including this channel's Ascension Activation Meditations. If you choose to get involved in a triggering process, such as the meditations, we urge you to be careful and listen closely to your inner guidance. While most techniques have built-in safeguards, as does your soul, it is possible to move too fast and trigger your Ascension template before you are ready. There are, unfortunately, some techniques being taught around the world that move souls too quickly into the ascension patterning. Generally, what happens if a soul moves too fast is that the slower parts of the self rebel and create illness in the body and/or emotions. In some cases, the soul can end up exiting the body, which greatly delays the physical ascension process, by at least one lifetime. Everything happens in perfect divine timing. If you understand this truth and align your various aspects to it, then you will be fine. Those that try and rush the ascension process are usually those who have an underlying fear that they are not good enough, or not okay as they are. The master template activates most efficiently when you are completely accepting of yourself as you are. If your motivation to ascend is to get off this filthy, no good planet, then you are likely to experience a lot of difficulties as you attempt to move forward. If you are avoiding or escaping your humanity and think ascension is your ticket to heaven, then you are in for a rude awakening. The caterpillar does not hate himself before spinning a cocoon and emerging as a butterfly. He does not take drugs designed to accelerate the metamorphic process. On the other hand, he does not sit around depressed as he contemplates losing his caterpillar form. Over-attachment to the physical form of the 3D self can be just as much a barrier as over-impatience. One of the things that is critical to your soul growth is recognizing the difference between ego resistance to, and inappropriateness of, a particular method or process. For example, if you engage in a highly powerful process designed to trigger your ascension template, and you feel tired, uncomfortable, or anxious, it could be your ego's resistance to moving into ascension, or it could be that the technique is not appropriate to your soul's vibration. There are several ways of dealing with this situation if you are unable to recognize the difference between ego resistance and inappropriateness. The simplest approach is to ask your God presence, your 12th density self, to advise you as to how and when to engage in a trigger process. You can devise a signal that your God self will give you to alert you as to the appropriateness of a particular method. Some humans use muscle testing, pendulums, or dowsing rods. Others receive a clairaudient or clairsentient sensation. This channel asked his God self to put him on the optimal path for soul growth many years ago. He continually asks that everything that he is guided to participate in be for his highest soul growth, happiness, and well-being. You can ask your God self to steer you to the particular teachers and teachings that allow the most joyous and efficient experience of ascension. If you make this request daily in meditation, you will find that almost always, any negativity you experience around a particular method or process of ascension activation will be due to ego resistance and not to inappropriateness. As you move through your ego resistance, as discussed in the psychology section, you will listen more and more to the true voice of your soul, and it will become easier and easier to know what is appropriate and what is not. The events taking place on your planet will serve to accelerate the activation of your ascension template. As the precessional alignment moves into position, the mutations caused by the EM bursts will be integrated into your DNA and will activate many codes and keys, including the master template. The majority of you reading this book have already activated the basic template. Additional activations will be forthcoming. Your cells will continue to mutate as more and more scalar EM pulses enter the earth. Eventually, you will notice that you have stopped aging and getting sick. You will have more energy and require less sleep. You will be drawn to small quantities of highly pure foods. Activities that used to be enjoyable will suddenly lose their appeal, while other things will draw your attention. It does not matter how old your physical body is. Even if you are in your 70s or 80s, you can still physically ascend, if that is your soul's desire. Not all of you that are in sickly, degenerating bodies are going to want to go through the process of resurrecting your physical form and keeping it through the changes, in which case you will go through spiritual ascension, as detailed earlier. You will find that whatever choice you are making, the effects of that choice will become more noticeable as the earth ascends in vibration. If you have decided to leave, your so-called terminal illness might kick you out of the body much sooner than you were planning on. On the other hand, if you thought it might take years to start looking younger and more vibrant, you might be in for a pleasant surprise.